Hello, everyone. This is Rory, welcoming you back to another episode of Security Confidential. Filling in today for Manoj. Our guest today is Richard Hollis. Richard is the founder and chief executive officer of Risk Crew. He is a seasoned cybersecurity professional and ardent privacy rights advocate who possesses over 30 years of hands on skills and experience in designing, implementing, and testing the security integrity of business information technology systems. He lives and breathes cybersecurity and understands how to simplify it and make it relevant. Richard, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Roy, for having me, and
Yeah.
thanks for that wonderful intro. The
Absolutely.
season, by the way, the season part that you referred to is salt. It's salty. The season, no pepper, just all salt at my age.
Hey, nothing
Thanks for
wrong with
having me.
that. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So, I guess let's just get into a little bit about you. What's your story? What's your background, and how'd you get to where you're at
My,
now?
my story, my background. It's a long story. I'm an old guy. I've been in cybersecurity for well over 30 years.
Hmm.
Prior to that, I was working for the government as a physical security expert, bypassing locks and alarms and CCTVs and whatnot. And then I did that in Washington D.C. for years and years. And then suddenly, computers started to be more and more attractive to me. So I took a side note and got into what is now cybersecurity. It wasn't called that at the time. I don't think it was called IT security at first, but it's gone through a lot of changes. But no, I've been around a long time. Primarily, I started, like I said, started with government and then into computer security with the government. Then took a job in the private sector and came over to Europe and did that for a while. And I started a company over in London. It's called Risk Crew, and no products, just things like risk assessments and security penetration testing, red team testing, breaking into systems and things like that. And I've had the company now for 20 some years, I think. We're
Okay.
located in London and we're having a blast doing it. It's a great, times are exciting to be in cybersecurity. It wasn't that sexy when I first started, but now everybody's talking about cyber. But when I was there, nobody would recognize you if you're sitting in the back of a room. And if you had something to say, nobody really wanted to hear it. I started the company right around the .com boom, when it was all e-commerce, e-commerce, e-commerce. And nobody thought about security for e-commerce platforms. So,
Right.
we're always like, the industry is always a step behind a technology breakthrough or some sort of, burst in whether it's technology or e-commerce ways to make money on the internet. So I always felt like I was in the shadows of some big star right before me.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's cool. I mean, so did you start the company then specifically for e-commerce services to service that industry?
We started back in like 2000, 2001. We started in London, and at the time, the only buyers for what's now known as penetration testing were banks, large, who were doing financial transactions or online banking, and so we were early founders of OWASP, the Open
Sure.
Web Application Security Project, yeah, in the UK, and the game was on a application level, so we started doing application penetration testing. But technically, the market was banks. Very very
Right.
few e-commerce providers, came along and did it, and then regulation came along, or standards and regulation came along, like PCI, payment card industry, that
Hmm.
mandated doing pen testing of transactional websites. So we started out as a web app pen testing company, and then got into risk frameworks like ISO 27001 or whatnot, and then moved on into as the market matured and there was a bigger call for the fundamentals like risk assessments and supply chain risk management, things like that, security awareness training. But so that's it. We're a smaller company. We always have been. Probably always will be. Half of us are geeky pen testers. The other half are song and dance guys like me who do risk assessments. But it's a lot of
Gotcha.
fun, and like I said, product agnostic.
Yeah, that's very cool. Um, when you're talking about pen testing, do you guys do it manually or do you use automated pen testing tools and stuff like that to help you along?
No, it's all manual.
Okay.
It's all manual. Pen testing has become really commoditized. As you know,
Yep.
you can get a free pen test out there, and just log into sites that it's a long time. We started the business for a very sophisticated customer, like a bank, who
Hmm.
understood the benefits from manual security penetration testing. So we've always been in that. We do manual, like to do it on site, so we've got knowledge transfer. And we can sit next to somebody and then show them exactly what we're doing and how easy it is to exploit a vulnerability.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we're picking up. I think Rory, the fun is doing things like red team testing and
Yeah.
not just looking for vulnerabilities in technology, but in people and process as well, and getting
Hmm.
on site and social engineering. It's a blast,
Yeah.
and that is now that at one time that was again a sophisticated client. Now that's starting to be seen as a much better way to do what is called penetration testing, a more holistic view of how do I bypass all the security controls that I'm relying on to protect my
Yeah.
data.
And I think you hit a key point there with pen testing is that it's a lot more of what the security tool limit is, and more so what is the actual limit of the user, and how you can manipulate them to get what you want. Because in real life, that's the angle that they're going to take 9 times out of 10. It's going to be trying to beat the human, not beating the technology.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. That's what everybody puts their money in technology and always have been. Of course, our industry promotes that. Buy this
Hmm.
firewall, this IDS, this
Yeah, it's all
IPS,
it's
this
it's a
anti-malware.
product.
Buy
Everything's a
this
product.
exactly. Exactly. Buy this product, and year after year, they're spending more and more and more on product, and they're
Right.
still, and every year, year after year after year, there's more and more and more breaches, and they just haven't put two together. A threat actor is going to take the path of least resistance, and if that's through a person rather than a firewall, that's the way they're going to go. So it's odd that we just don't seem to learn that. We're driven. Our market, our market is driven by cybersecurity product marketers who tell
Right.
us, cybersecurity equals this thing that I want to sell you. And Yeah, but one of the best things I do is, or perspectives I have in a company is, I go to a company and if they can tell me that there's three attack vectors to any business. It's people,
Hmm.
process, and technology. I
Right.
say, great. Do you split your security budget a third on you and spend a third on people, a third on process, and a third on technology? Oh, no, it's all of it spent on technology. And right
Right.
there, you know that they're neglecting two out of three attack vectors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
No, that's right on. I mean, it's funny you say people, process, technology, because between Manoj and myself here at Dark Rhino, we've talked about those three things ad nauseum, as far as our approach to cybersecurity and what we're trying to do. And your point about it being a product, it's exactly that. Cybersecurity is no longer the best tool, has market dominance. It's the best marketing, the highest budget has market dominance. Whatever people hear about, and know about. And then that affects certain industries for sure. Um, but it's definitely affected this one.
okay, Rory, I'm an old guy, as you can see by the color of my hair. I've been around for a long time, and you know what? I'm at that point in my profession where I look back and I'm really disappointed with the cybersecurity industry.
Mm,
Our product vendors, our managed security, service providers, our even the yeah, even our internet service providers. We have all done a terrible, terrible job. Our product vendors, they sell us products that frankly don't work. They don't.
right.
They don't work. Cybersecurity products don't work, and it's odd that we, whether that's malware is probably the best example. Ransomware. Everybody's, oh my god, ransomware is a problem. Ransomware. What is ransomware? Ransomware is malware. Do you know anybody who's not running anti-malware software on their devices? At least two or three? No. But we never say, hey, the ransomware problem might be a proof that our anti-malware vendors are letting us down
Right.
because it's malware that's not being that. So you look at and see these obvious examples where our products just aren't fit for purpose.
Yeah.
All right, they were fit for purpose for a threat 3 or 4 years ago, but by the time when a vendor puts his R&D into an IDS or an IPS or a sandbox or some kind of newfangled high sexy technology and sells it to us, that was a threat from years ago. But they're
Right.
going to leave it on the market until they get the money back. And anyway, I'm probably with you guys more than you understand, because I look at our industry today and I don't take a lot of pride in the quality that we've settled for. We
Yeah.
seem to, year after year, like I said, we spend more money, we buy more products, and the products don't work. We have breaches, and we respond to breaches by spending more on product. It's a circle. It's a circle of failure, as far as I'm concerned.
So what's step one then to simplify this, reverse this trend? What do
Well,
organizations need to do?
here's what you and I, we would go out and buy a flat screen TV. We take it home. It doesn't work. What would you do?
Return it.
You'd take it back.
Hmm.
You take it back to the vendor and say, I'm sorry, this doesn't work. But no, we buy a firewall, and a firewall is supposed to prevent specific traffic going through a port. And if it doesn't, do we take it back and say, I'm sorry, I bought your product to stop traffic through certain ports and it doesn't work. I'd like my money back, please. So I think it all starts with, I know I've got my brother will send back his Coke at a restaurant if it doesn't have enough ice in it, or if it has too much ice in it.
Right.
If we started to actually practice, a certain consumer, requirement for excellence in our own industry. And when things don't work, we send them back. That would be step one. But our
Hmm.
product vendors, our service providers, bear absolutely no accountability and no liability. All right, we have a breach, like I said, ransomware. We have a breach. Why don't we pick up the phone and call our anti-malware vendor and say, "I'd like my money back, please. I just got ransomware,
Right.
and can you cover my cost because because the impact has been X."
Yep.
There's absolutely no connection between what we buy and customer satisfaction in this industry, and I just don't get that, Rory. I get cranky when I say salty. I'm really cranky. So I think it all starts with us.
Yeah.
We have settled for crap in the cybersecurity industry. We buy stuff, it doesn't work. We say nothing. We just buy more stuff.
Right.
And you know what else I'd point out to you? It's things that we don't talk about in our industry include, cybersecurity vendors profit from the insecurity of computing.
Hmm.
Let me say that again because I'm a bit of a drama queen.
Let's
Cybersecurity
hear it.
vendors profit from the insecurity of our computers, period. It's like the pharmaceutical industry, who makes a lot of money
Yep.
selling us, pills for our sneezes and sniffles and all our viruses and our infections and all the things that bug us. And you got to wonder, I mean, they make so much money treating the symptoms that it seems in our industry nobody's looked at the cure.
Right.
And if it was, would we buy it? Would they sell it to us?
Yeah.
Because there's so much money in treating the symptoms.
No, I
So
think
that's my
it's, I'd agree with you. It's the classic doctor model. A patient cured is a customer loss, right? So you gotta, you
that's
gotta, you gotta keep them coming back for more. And
that's it.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact too that the powerhouses in this industry, it's been a norm to keep this so kind of maybe shadowy is the right word, where it's hard for the normal person, your average individual, to really understand technology, cybersecurity, and all that from just looking at it plainly. And unless you're an expert, you're in this field, you might not have the best grasp on what you actually need and what it's actually supposed to do. It's like with your Coke example. I know how Coke's supposed to taste. If it doesn't taste right, I'll send it back. But if I don't understand how this antivirus is supposed to work or how this firewall is supposed to work, if it doesn't work right, then maybe I think it might be my own fault. And I think if we as a population were to be more educated and more understanding of, okay, I know how this is supposed to work and I can identify when it's not working correct, you'd have a lot more vendors who would be held accountable by their customers because they would know something's wrong.
I agree with maybe half of that, Rory, because I
Hmm.
know when I turn on, I don't know anything about flat screen TVs, but if I turn it on, it doesn't work or the picture's always fuzzy. I know
Right.
it's, just like I don't know a lot about firewalls, but if I turn it on and traffic still comes through that shouldn't come through, or and I bought an IDS and I have a breach and it didn't detect it, and
Hmm.
it's called an intrusion detection system,
Right.
I don't have to be a techie geek to know, hey, maybe I bought the wrong IDS. No, I bought something to detect intrusions, and I've got an IDS that I spent X for, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's just I agree with you that there's a certain amount of, and vendor products are filled with, we buy them out of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Be
Yep.
afraid, be very afraid. And there's all these, they're overstatements, and uh, they're hyped up to us in marketing terms that, what's the next generation, antivirus? What's that? What's a multi-generation? Is that some sort of antivirus tool from 20 years ago plus this? We purposely shroud these products in this speak that confuses everybody. But at
Right.
the end of the day, either the firewall works or it doesn't. Either the intrusion detection works or it doesn't. Either the anti-malware is very, very simple. You buy an anti-malware and you get malware. I'm sorry, what else do you have to say other than pick up the phone and call the vendor and say, did I configure this wrong? Did you
Yeah.
configure this wrong? Here's one of the biggest tests I always have before I work with customers who say, should I buy X? And I say, hey, let's go to Google and type in vendor X's name and see if they've been breached.
Hmm.
Because you know what, Rory? The top 20 vendors in our industry, the top 20 vendors in our industry who sponsor all the conferences that you and I go to and, underwrite all they spend billions of dollars marketing their services. Top 20 have all been breached in the last 18 months.
Right.
The top, name them. And you see this, and you think, whoa, don't they use their own products? RSA loses their code to hackers. I'm sorry. And so we all got to buy another RSA encryption product because the RSA encryption. Fortinet, Sonic Wall, read the papers every day. Our cybersecurity vendors are getting hacked by threat actors. And these are our trusted products. These are the products we buy to secure our systems.
Right.
They've now become threat vectors of choice for cyber criminals because they know we count on those sonic walls and those and those Fortinet firewalls and RSA's encryption and our own. And so they don't even practice what they preach. My point is they're not leaders, they're not shepherds, they're sheep. They're just as lost as we are.
Right.
They can't protect their own systems, and they're selling us things that we're buying to protect ours. And if you just look, it's right there. It's right in plain sight. And the best way to do that, before you go out and buy a cybersecurity product, go to Google and say, has that vendor been hacked in the last any? And see if they've been breached. And then ask the vendor about that. I'm sorry, don't you use your own IDS to protect your own company systems because your business has been breached?
Right.
And that's what I mean as consumers. We're not smart enough to connect those dots. We're buying very expensive things that, if they don't work, have a dear impact on our businesses. And so the basic due diligence of before we buy a firewall or antivirus or intrusion detection or whatever it is we're going to buy, an encryption product, by going out and say, have they lost this encryption algorithm before? Have they been
Yeah.
hacked? And just seeing, do they know something that I don't, before I buy their product, and ask them about that. You're buying an IDS. This is what I'm talking about. Do you guys use that IDS? Has it ever been part of a breach? Has that IDS ever been part of a customer breach that you're aware of? And if so, why? Because of bad configuration? Because of, and this is what's lacking as consumers. We don't extend the same, you know, requirement for excellence that we do on everything else we buy, from flat screen TVs to telephone watches to gym memberships.
Right.
If it doesn't work, why is it that our industry doesn't complain about it and doesn't do basic due diligence? What is it about the cybersecurity industry that makes it exempt from consumer satisfaction?
Yeah. If I had to guess, like I
Yeah,
said,
I'm
I
being rhetorical there,
no,
Rory,
I
because
know. Believe me, I'm right with you. I do think though it comes to that. Cybersecurity is perceived as being a very technical man's game, right? You have to understand this and that and the other thing. But if you break that down like you just did, if people had that broken down for them, business owners had that broken down for them to say, hey, this is what it's supposed to do. If it doesn't do this, it's junk. Return it. If they had that mindset,
If it
I think it
doesn't
would be
meet the
changed.
objective, right? The
Right.
objective of the product is supposed to do X. Like I buy a car. I don't know anything about cars, especially these days. When I was a kid, I could, pop a hood and start. Yeah, nowadays, yeah, but I'm saying you jump in a car, you turn the key and it doesn't go anywhere. What
Right.
else do you need to know?
Yeah.
It either meets the requirement of the a firewall, anti-malware. These are very simple concepts here to keep malware off of our device. So once you get malware, what else do you need to know other than did I do something wrong? Was it misconfigured? Is it a user problem? Please, Mr. Vendor, can you explain to me how I got malware when I just paid you X for something called anti-malware? So I agree. I take your point, and you're absolutely right, Rory. There's a technical competence
Hmm.
maybe, but at the end of the day, it's just consumer satisfaction.
Yeah.
How many firewalls need to get breached before we understand is there any what is it a really good example I think I have is like security incident and event management tools, sim tools, right?
Right. Yep.
And we're sold this idea of false positives.
Hmm.
Okay, so we got socks and we're monitoring sims, and there's false positive, there's a false positive, there's a false. I'm sorry, what is a false positive? Why don't we call it what it is? It's a false alert. It's not positive, it's not negative. You got to get off your backside and go investigate it. All right. And
Right.
do you know that the industry average is 40% false positive for any sim product out there?
Wow.
Now that means 4 out of 10 times, 4 out of 10 alerts are going to be quote unquote false positives. All right, we've accepted that as consumers, but I'm telling you, why haven't we said, "Hey, wait a minute, if the product's wrong 4 out of 10 times,
Yeah.
maybe I'm just spitballing here, but maybe it's not, fit for purpose. Maybe you're not ready for the market."
Right.
And that's the kind of consumer logic I just don't, why are we sitting behind socks? Because what happens is what everybody talks about happens. Sock analysts are looking for, 4 out of 10 are wrong, or they've got to investigate them. So they stop monitoring and they stop responding to them because, oh, that's probably another false positive. That's probably another false positive. I just checked that something like that the other day. It was a false positive. And so it's gotten to where like 1 out of 3 alarms, 1 out of 3 events identified in SOX aren't investigated because there are,
Right.
could be a false positive. Meaning
Right.
people are just tired of chasing down ghosts, into rabbit holes because the products gives us false positives when it should just say intrusion, yes or no. Should be a binary call.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a guy on here a while ago. I actually had the pleasure of doing his talk as well, but he talked a lot about analyst fatigue and tying that to, false positives and how you get these analysts who just are burnt out after 6 months because they spend their whole time running down, these false positives. When you said that 4 out of 10 thing too, immediately I thought of, I don't know any gun that would do well selling if its claim to fame was that four out of 10 times you try to pull the trigger, the bullet won't go off. That
Yep.
it's not
Yep.
going to
And then,
sell
by the way,
very well.
that's down in the last 5 years from 47%. And that's almost half.
Right.
And still we buy products that have a 40% margin of error. And that say that right up front. You sign a service level agreement that says you understand false positives. But I'm sorry, a false positive, then the name is right there in what they're calling it. False positive. Is it false? Is it positive? We don't know. Why don't you go look at it? Okay, thanks for that help.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. But that's that kind of attitude that I don't think we demand. Here's where I'm going with this, Rory. We
Hmm.
don't demand better from our cybersecurity vendors and security service providers. And that's my lesson learned after 30 years. I look back and say, I wish we would have demanded more. I wish we would have sent that Coke back because it didn't have enough ice, or that because it wasn't Coke, it was something else. I just don't understand how we have allowed vendors to, especially when year after year. And I heard this on one of your, in fact, a podcast from a guy that was on with you a couple of weeks ago, and he said every single year we spend more money, and every single year there's more breaches. What's wrong with that?
Right.
And this is and what's wrong with that is we every time we have a breach, what do? We buy more products. And it's that circle, it's a hamster circle that we just keep on. That's what we do. Oh, we had a breach. Let's buy another product doesn't work, we have another breach. It's And here's where I'm going with this. To me, you look after any major breach that comes through WannaCry, or a huge problem that comes through the look at our top security vendors, and all of them have significant share price increases. They
Mm-hmm.
make more money. And so this commercial, thing I told you about in terms of cybersecurity vendors profit from the insecurity of computing. What's wrong is they profit from breaches,
Yeah.
and when they should be profiting from non-breaches. How is it that they make more money profiting from when our systems have been breached, when it should be just the opposite way around? It
Yeah.
should be That's where the money should be. But it's not. It's absolutely not. We as consumers, we jerk our legs back, and we automatically run out and buy more product. As soon as I have customers who have ransomware, their first thing is, we need more malware. I'm saying, well, you had now anti-malware.
Yeah.
You don't need more. We all need better anti-malware is the answer to ransomware. And by the way, another really interesting statistic that gives you insight on our poor products is, did you know that I think it's like there are 43 common vulnerability exposures, 43 CVEs associated with 18 products,
Hmm.
from Microsoft to the Sonic Wall, that are responsible for over 90% of the ransomware we've had in the last 5 years.
Wow.
So I'm saying there's 18 products with common vulnerabilities that have already been announced to everybody that we're not patching, that's being exploited to upload ransomware, and it's
Right.
all through products. 90%. And yet we don't look at our vendors as part of the problem with ransomware, is because it's poor. Our vendors don't even practice security by design.
Yeah. I mean, that statistic right there speaks for itself. It's
It's
all
it's 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 published by CERT, which does nothing but track common vulnerabilities in ransomware, and they're saying, wait a
right.
minute, 18 products, and it's the products that you and I buy from Microsoft and Adobe to I'll send you this list separately. It's just eye opening, because you think that's 90% of the ransomware that we've had in the last 5 years. That's attributed to vulnerabilities associated with products that we buy to secure our systems. How does
Yeah.
that work?
So how do you think then we make this cybersecurity fight more prevalent to non-technical people then, to get them to understand this conundrum that we're in between products not doing what they say they claim to do, and the user base just being okay with, less than satisfactory.
I think we have to talk about the consumer is sound asleep. It's
Yeah.
to me, Rory. It's a lot like in my lifetime in the '70s. You jumped in cars and they didn't have seatbelts.
Right.
And Detroit wasn't interested in putting any safety in cars because there's no money in it, and they weren't going to spend an extra dollar for a piece of canvas, that goes and wraps up. But people were getting into accidents going 30 miles an hour, and they're going through the windshield. And it took a consumer, it took people like Ralph Nader, a tireless activist for safety in automobiles, to say enough is enough. Too many people are dying because and then suddenly consumers started to be attracted by, oh, I don't know, secure automobiles. Like I remember Volvo was the biggest, was the coolest, because it
Hmm.
was secure, and and suddenly, next thing you know, we had airbags in cars, and shoulder harnesses, and anti-lock brakes, and shatterproof glass, and everything is not, and now it's the norm.
Right.
Now it's the norm. It's the standard. But it took the consumers to say, hey, can we have a little safety in these automobiles? Anyway, that's what's missing in our industry. And for
Hmm.
me, it's very personal. It starts with, nobody's awake until they've had their phone broken into or their laptop broken into. And then suddenly it's, hey, are you kidding me? I thought I bought something to protect myself from this.
Yep.
So I tell my friends, I tell my family, you got to make it personal. You got to make it personal, because nobody's going to look out for you. Nobody's going to look after the privacy of your data. Big companies aren't, and your data has very intrinsic value. Your data is cash out there in today's, market. Mark Zuckerberg knows it. That's why he's a billionaire and you're not. Whether where you where you've been, where you go, your geolocation, your likes, your dislike, what time you turned on your mobile, what time you turned it off. All of this is data equals cash, and
Right.
that data is not protected. And so, until it touches you, and you go out and apply for a loan, and you don't get it because, you know, because somebody sold your data on Facebook, to a loan company or to a healthcare provider, and on Facebook you said that you've got a upper respiratory cough and you can't get, and you're living in a place where you can't get antibiotics, and then you go apply for health insurance and they tell you, oh, you're asthmatic, and you're like, no, I'm not. I don't smoke. I great health. And no, well, Mark Zuckerberg sold them your data that
Hmm.
says that you're prone to upper respiratory system ailments. Until that happens to us, you as a person, me, or even a business, I don't think we take it very seriously. We keep buying crap that doesn't work. And, but I don't, honestly, I talk to my clients who've had breaches and I say, right here, we do forensics investigation and say, came in through this port right here. And that port shouldn't have taken that traffic. In fact, it says right here in your SLA and they were supposed to be, and they bought a managed service that port should have been monitored and somebody should have picked that up, and it's all gone. And at the end of the day, the client refuses, just doesn't go back to the vendor and say it didn't work. It was crap. Now, part of this is the service level agreements that we all sign, just like
Right.
we click, and we accept the terms of the vendors. But I tell you, all you have to do is not sign it, and or write on the bottom. And if I have a breach, you'll be responsible. Send that back and see how quickly your vendor calls you and says, "We can't accept this SLA." And then ask yourself, why is that?
Hmm.
Why wouldn't they accept accountability or liability if their product is involved or responsible for a breach? And that should say everything. You should tell you just bought a flat screen TV that doesn't work, my friend,
Right.
and until you start asking for more, well, I should say, until you start expecting more, then asking it, and then just maybe the vendors will start to, like Volvo did, and become, hey, maybe it's a secure internet service provider can make a lot of money out there. I'm all over the map on this, Rory, because I don't see. I think it's consumer awareness issue, but I don't. And the consumers I talk to are those technical geeks who understand how a firewall works, anti-malware scripting, and I can't get them to say, "Wait a minute, is it malware or not?"
Right.
If it is, it is, and shouldn't the product have addressed that? Yes, it should have. Well, then pick up the phone and call the vendor and see what they have to say. Because if you don't call them, they're out there, and if they say, "No, I'm sorry, we don't cover that," then say, "Okay, well, wait a minute." But I tell you, I'm an American. I'm living over in London, and I always, for me, the Americans are a very litigious group, and I think you know, it might take a lawsuit or two. Say, I bought this firewall from you, and I still had a breach. I'd like my money back, and I'd like to sue you because I had ransomware that took my business down, and you were responsible for it.
Right.
I don't know why. All I try to tell everybody is, or tell my friends, my family, and the businesses that I consult to, are, you got to take this personal. You have to take it personal, because it is. This is our personal data being taken from us by
Right.
nation states, by cyber criminals. This is data about people's husbands, their wives, their mothers, their fathers, their grandmothers, their granddaughters. This is medical data. This is DNA, for crying out. It doesn't get any more personal than that. How It's not ones and zeros. How do we not see this as a very personal thing, that can have a profound effect on our privacy and the rest of our lives, because that data, whether it's stolen or monetized by a bona fide company, is being, can have a detrimental effect, a real detrimental effect on your life. Once you've lost your personal data, our DNA is out there being sold by ancestry.com, or anybody else
Right.
who uses those kind of, look up my family tree for free. Yeah, what's for free is give us some DNA.
Yeah.
And, 2 generations from now, when your great grandkids can't go to school because they have the wrong DNA, you're going to think, oh, geez, you should have protected that DNA.
Yeah. I mean, all those points you make, are definitely things I've thought about myself, and I think everyone needs to think about. It's nothing is ever for free, especially when it comes to cyber. And maybe with cybersecurity, cybercrime, it's the biggest advantage to the criminals is that they're so anonymous, right? You can't point to someone and say that guy stole this from me or that guy took this from me. And, maybe that's what weighs on the consumer mind, that kind of it's hard for you to want to go after someone because you don't know who to go after to begin with. But they need to get over that hump, and I think it definitely starts with holding vendors accountable, or the people who you give
And
your data to, right? Holding them
that's right.
accountable.
There's two things. We're having two conversations. The vendors who are supposed to be, we're buying products from to protect that data, and the
Right.
companies that have lost that data. All right. So in both as an end user and yeah, you're right. 9 times out of 10, we don't know that Mark Zuckerberg has lost our data or sold it. Either or, because we're not connected. But when we do find out, it's too late, and
Yeah.
it's like you were sleepwalking through this lifetime with the things that we let go without question. Whether I'm giving you my data, Amazon, now what you do with it, I'm trusting you, and that trust is, who cares? You can trust Jeff Bezos, or you can trust him to turn that your data into cash,
Yeah.
which is what he does. But you give it to somebody else, to momandpop.com, who are selling flowers on the internet, and you're saying, well, okay, they're just what kind of flowers I have, but it's also the birthday of your grandmother in there, because and her address and her whatever other, and your credit card and all this other data, and they have a breach, and the cyber criminal takes that from you. And you suddenly find your grandmother gets, identity theft. It has a profound impact on her life. It's personal. It's
Yeah.
not ones and zeros. And it seems to me, when it is that personal, we should be demanding more from the companies that we give our data to protect it, and the companies that we buy products to protect that data to, if we're that business. But we're not. We're letting down. We're letting down our customers by not sending back our firewalls that get breached. Is my point. There's a balance in between there, because the customers who are buying these security products, and the products don't work, and they're losing data, and they're breaching the trust of the customers who gave them that data. I'm
Right.
giving you my grandmother's home address and her birthday. It might not be that important to you, but it might be important to grandma.
Right.
But that's just missing that common sense. I don't know. I get really worried when I see how much data that we give away, and I also get really worried when I talk to businesses and they don't care. It's ones and zeros. It's just some grandma's birthdays,
Yeah.
and they don't see it as data about people's lives. Period. And I'll tell you one story real quick.
Yeah.
I'm in London, and every couple of months I sit and there's a guy I meet with, and he's a vendor for the largest firewall vendor in the UK, in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
And I meet with him, and one day he comes in. We have lunch every couple of months, and one day I come in, and he's late, and he walks in, and he's beat red. He's all upset. I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "Somebody hacked into my laptop." And I went, "Oh, isn't don't you use one of those newfangled firewalls that you sell?" And I'm making fun of him, but he's mad. He's mad. I
Right.
said, "No, really, what is it?" And he said, "Somebody took pictures of my family at the beach." So now it's personal. This is a guy who sells firewall products for a living. All right.
Hmm.
He turns a nice living selling security products, but now it's somebody had the audacity to go through his firewall and take pictures of his family. So somebody around the world is looking at pictures of his wife and his kids on a beach somewhere, and now he's upset. And I'm
Right.
thinking, how can you sell security products and be that disconnected from the effects of a breach? But until it was personal to him, and he's still upset about it to this day. And it's
Hmm.
that kind of disconnect that I think our vendors have about the importance of selling us something that actually works, and that businesses have about protecting people's data, because it is
Yeah.
personal. It doesn't get any more personal than this. I mean, you could send your Coke back for too much ice or too much, but you're engaged in a quest for quality there in that transaction, right? I want the
Yep.
right ice in my Coke. I want a flat screen TV to work. That's all I'm advocating, that we cross that line to just start asking for more and expecting more.
Yeah.
And then without that, we're never going to change the industry. And 20 years from now, there'll be other podcasts on the crap cybersecurity products. We all have high hopes for AI. AI is going to
Yeah.
save us. Is it? Is it really? Has any technology saved us? from a
Mm-hmm.
technology problem in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has always been a bolt-on in my 30 years. No matter what it was. I remember Bluetooth, insecure, Wi-Fi, 802, insecure, cloud, insecure, technology first, security second. And suddenly AI comes along and you think, wow, it could be used for good, it could be used for evil. And if you don't think it's being used for evil right now, you
Mm-hmm.
just don't understand how cyber criminals work.
Yeah. Well, I know you talk about cybercrime.com and the org chart. What is that? Can you dive into that a little bit for me?
Yeah, cyber. Well, I don't. For me, what I see, what I'll dive into you for is just this awareness of how sophisticated cybercrime is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we all think it is, we all know it is, but we don't understand cybercrime today as a business. There's two threat actors out there who changed the landscape completely. One, nation states.
Yeah.
Nation states, you just can't compete against them. A nation state puts its resources against your business. You just throw up your hands. You can't fight that. It's like that. Remember Crocodile Dundee when he's walking across the park with his girlfriend, and some kids jump out, and she says, "Mick, give him your wallet. He's got a knife." He said, "That's not a knife. This is a knife." And he pulls out that big. That's nation states on the threat landscape. Their resources, their capability, just dwarfs anybody out there.
Yeah.
And I always thought it always would be. It's like they play on a completely different level. Not so much these days because organized cyber crime gangs have increasingly upped the ante. It is now a very people think of it like some Russian mafia, and they are. But the first cybercrime about 3 or 4 years ago, I was at a conference in Amsterdam,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody said, "Here, let me introduce you to," and they gave me his name, and he was a journalist who investigated cybercrime. And I started walking, and he said, and he's whispering in my ear. He said, "This guy right here, he's probably the third highest cybercrime criminal in the world." And I'm walking over to him, and he's in a three-piece suit, and he opens up his mouth and he talks to me with an English accent that could cut glass, and he's got shoes that are worth more than my car, and he is one of the most. And I sit down with him and have a pleasant glass of red wine as we discuss the cybersecurity threat landscape out there, and I'm thinking, well, he's one of the biggest players out there, and he's
Mm-hmm.
running one of the biggest organized cyber crime groups out there. The point is that these things are more sophisticated in terms of structure. They have a CEO, they have a CFO, a funding officer, they have an HR officer, they have a marketing department, they have a sales department who sells all the commoditized ransomware as a service. They are more structured than my business. I run a business, and for 90% of the businesses that I talk to, and their business is hacking. Their business is to hack into your business, and they make money at it.
Yeah.
They say crime pays, but organized crime pays a lot more. Uh, um, and their business model is hacking into your business. And that's what we just don't connect the dots. We just think, oh, they're cyber criminals. They're out there, g- grabbing grandma's identity and trying to, do some identity theft. No, 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 no. They're targeted. The things that they target and the structure that they have. Do you know that the average C level what would be a C level, like a CFO level in an organized crime gang makes about 15 million US dollars annually.
Wow.
15 mil. A mid-level manager, all right, people will go out there like an HR manager who's recruiting coders to code new ransomware, things like that. They make about 5 million US. And a coder, just somebody writing code makes about $1 million US a year.
Hmm.
Big money. Now, I don't know of a coder, anybody who's working at a bank and developing, a web app transactional application who's making £1 million a year.
Right.
It just so the difference, and they can pay that because you can imagine when they invest, they get a return on that investment. And so this is a business that's out to hack other businesses, and they are very good at what they do. And it's that misconception. Over 70% of organized cybercrime, cyber criminals, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote, are over 40 years old.
Wow.
Over 40 years old, and they're making $1 million annual salaries. Low risk, high reward. It doesn't get any better than that. It
Yeah.
used to be that once upon a time, they said 2 out of 10 hackers worked for organized crime groups. It's the opposite now. 8 out of 10 work for organized crime. They have all consolidated and they've understand this is where the money's at. And yet, on the threat landscape, we still have this perception like there are a couple of kids, sitting in their basement eating pizza, hopped up on Red Bull, trying to infect a bank with ransomware. No, not at all. Extremely, these guys have 24/7 help centers. They have terms and conditions for using ransomware that they're selling to kids, with
Mhm.
Red Bull, who are hopped up on Red Bull. They have user manuals for the ransomware that they sell. They have, and like I said, help centers if you have a problem with it.
Right.
They guarantee 100% money back guarantee, for the malware that they sell. It's just this is a
Wow.
business that is we underestimate. We underestimate. We're going on, everybody's idea of cybercrime gangs 10, 20 years ago. That's not what the landscape looks like today. Um, the landscape looks like today is they're wearing three-piece suits and internationally with offshore accounts, and move money like Citibank wishes they could move money.
Yeah. So how did it get here then? If it started out as this idea of like, kids in their basements hacking grandma's account, when did it really become, okay, you know what? This isn't just that. This is a profitable business. When do you think that kind of switch took place?
Well, it's been switching slowly by the commoditization of, you can buy denial of service credits now. You can buy, look at ransomware. Have you ever been
Hmm.
to a ransom? If you've ever had ransomware, they'll take you to a place on the dark web with, that says, they'll show you proof of life. So this is, yes, we've got, and it's like going through an Amazon checkout. You literally have a cart that says, put your key, to decode here for proof of life, see here. And even at the end of it, it comes to, I remember 5 years ago, I saw this when I was first paying off ransomware for a client who asked us to do that. And we did it. And I was just shocked. I'm on the dark web on some guy's website. And, we paid him for proof of life. He gave it to us. The customer paid, got the decryption key back. He decrypted all of it. And he said, oh, okay, thanks very much. Could you rate our service 5 stars, please? I'm not kidding. It is. They adopted the e-commerce model that everybody uses.
That's
All right,
unreal.
because of course what they want is they want a good reputation. If
Yeah.
we give you ransomware, we'll give you that decryption key. And so,
Hmm.
literally, could you please leave us a review? Was it a pain? Was it a pain to process your decryption? Would you recommend us? Would you recommend if somebody got infected? Would you recommend that they pay us? And that was 5 years ago, Rory. And
Wow.
so with the commoditization, suddenly the 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 dark net is moving just like Silicon Valley, and they're adopting the same principles of e-commerce against hacking. Okay, now so when that started, and of course that gave volume, that gave kids, hopped up on Red Bull eating pizza, that suddenly gave them access to top of the line 0-day vulnerabilities, top of the line ransomware. That was and then it became a question of cyber criminal gangs getting into the distribution of commoditized, weapons like ransomware, who gave it a worldwide view, and that's why ransomware took off so much because it was all commoditized. It
Yeah.
was, it wasn't the cyber criminal gangs who were actually they wouldn't go to the length of trying to infect somebody with ransomware. They'll just sell that ransomware kit to a hacker who's looking to make some cash and put himself through college, and that's it. And
Right.
that's big money. That's big. There's more money in the distribution of hacking tools. So that was the evolution. It wasn't that they were doing large scale identity theft. They were selling identity theft tools to kids,
Yeah.
who were able to, who script kiddies and hacktivists who were able to up their game because suddenly they have tools like, like this is a knife. They had they weren't writing, funky scripts and
Yeah.
trying to do phishing, no, it upped the sophistication of the whole market, and the cyber criminal gangs that were able to move on that level. All they're doing now is distributing, and the things that they distribute in waves, and they, that I don't know what's next. It's they'll move wherever the market goes.
Right.
I'm looking at if to see if there's one or two, like the Jeff Bezos, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musks of the cyber criminal world. There's not that. I wouldn't say there's three, but I think it's getting under 50, as I see it. It's certainly top 20. I keep hearing the same names more and more. It's a consolidation of the market
Mm,
place. And as long as we have an unregulated, deep web, it's they've got a place to sell it.
right. All right. So, what would you leave with any business owner who really wanted to kind of take the first step to become more educated in what they could do to protect their business? What would you leave them with?
I'd say, I sell pen testing for a living, Rory. I told you this, and
Yep.
I'm amazed that people pay us to do what they should be doing themselves. Is get in touch with your inner hacker. Try to hack your own business before you hire somebody to do a pen test on it.
Hmm.
You don't know how to hack? Hacking's easy. There's three things. All hacking boils down to three objectives. Uh, Change configuration, upload a program, or get physical access to what? Change configuration or upload a program. That's
Hmm.
it. All hacking comes down to those three objectives. Every single hacker on the planet, every hack you and I have ever read about, is about can you change configuration of the target system? Can you upload a program to that target system? And if not, can you get physical access to do one or the other? So when I go into a client and I said, have you done any pen testing? He goes, no, I'm hiring you to do that. I said, no. Have you tried to break into your own systems? It's like before you go out to find somebody to physically secure your house. Have you walked around and say, if I was going to break into my house, I'd come in through this window, I'd kick this down, there's no alarm there. And have you done that? So take a good look at your own house before you hire somebody to come in and break into it, because they're going to come right through they're going to break a window or come through a door or something obvious, and they're
Right.
going to give you the short answer to that. So I try to tell people, get in touch with your inner hacker, whether on a personal level. Try to hack your own device. Try to hack your mobile phone, hack your laptop. you
Right.
don't you don't know where to start? Go to Google and type in how to hack and then type in a flat screen TV. How
Right.
to hack a Wi-Fi connection. How to hack my mobile, and put in your mobile device. Start right there. And if you're too lazy, go to YouTube and see a video on it. Just do the minimum. Do the
Yeah.
minimum. Go to Google to hack in. You got a firewall, and then put your firewall's name in and say, how do I hack a XX firewall? And get the vulnerabilities associated with that and fix them. Do that yourself. But before you do, try to hack into it. Try to find that vulnerability and exploit it, and get that tactical sense of how easy it is.
Yeah.
Because all the money we're talking about is because is for these reasons that products don't seem to work, and we're not getting us rolling up our sleeves and doing, and trying to break into our own system, so we understand how easy that is for somebody else with skills, experience, and tools. So make
Yeah.
it personal. I'd end on do it yourself. Get in touch with your inner hacker, and then because you'll shock yourself. You're just like, well, geez, we're wide open. You work for a large company. Type in, go to the dark web and say, has anybody broke into, and type in the name of your company and see what they say.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I've been there. Here's how to do it, and give you step by step instructions. It's all out there. There's knowledge transfer. You don't have to be have to. Nobody goes to ethical. Nobody on the dark side. Nobody puts themselves through an ethical hacking school.
Yeah.
And then it's not like that. They're just all self-taught, because the knowledge is all out there. So at least roll up your sleeves and figure to show yourself how easy it is, because you would take a different perspective of the problem if you did.
I think that's great advice. I think that's something that all people needed to probably hear, and especially business owners, to know that they're able to do that, to get in there and try it themselves. Any books, events, upcoming talks, or anything that you'd like to plug our listeners to?
No. Thanks, Rory. No, I'm on the circuit, speaking a lot. If you go to our website, I would, because a lot of what we've been talking about, we recently wrote a paper called uh, uh, how the cybersecurity industry has failed, the circle of failure.
Okay.
It's about a 20-page white paper, and it goes through all the different elements. And in there's a checklist of things that we can all do to start improving our industry. And I would say if you went to riskcrew.com, you could download that paper if you're interested in some of the things that we talked about today. If you want to get involved, it's got an action checklist of things you can actually do.
Perfect. Okay, then we'll link your website and urge our listeners and subscribers to go check that out. But
Thank you.
it's been great for me. Very very insightful. So thank you for your time.
No, thank you, Rory. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.